Well, hello, oddballs. It's your host, Bobby.
And your co-host, Lexi.
And this is Oddities on Elm Street.
We're back!
We're back! We're back and better than ever.
We're live.
We are alive and well. Tell them what's been going on in your life, because you have had the most, life updates and changes.
Wow, yeah. So, in May, I got married.
She sure did.
I sure did. Bob was my maid of honor, of course.
Yes.
Then I went on my honeymoon to Jamaica with my awesome husband, and it was so nice to just not have anything to do.
Yeah.
And then I came back. I went to work for 2 days, and then I was there for a few hours Friday morning, and they called me in and let me go to a job that was working at for 8.5 years.
Right out of high school, right?
Yeah. All of my adulthood, I've been working there. So that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, 2 or so weeks after that, I broke my foot because I'm a clumsy motherfucker. It was on Father's Day, and I was bringing stuff out to my car to go to my dad's, and I just tripped and fell. And then I was like, I can't get up.
Oh no, life alert.
My husband will come looking for me soon.
Just lay here.
I know. I was like, I don't know what else to do. And he did.
Oh, thank God for Trevor.
Yeah. So, yeah, that all happened, and just been trying to figure out life
Ever since.
Yeah, so quite a bit. But I'm so happy to be here with you, and we have Buddy here, my little sidekick.
I wonder if they can see him on the camera.
I don't think
so.
so.
I think he's
maybe the very tip of his head, but
just the little ears.
Yeah. And then for those of you who are not watching on YouTube, we are in a new setup.
Yes.
Bob and Miller have been going ham and made this whole new studio in the basement.
Yeah, we joked about it multiple times before when we were still recording upstairs.
And yet here we are.
I know, it's crazy because this room used to be like the coal room. There was this huge coal stove that we had to move out of here. I don't know how we did it. I threw a rib out. It was rough trying to move that because it was full to the top with coal.
Oh my gosh.
And this my parents came in here. My dad grew up in this house too, for those who don't know. And he was just in awe of how different it looks. And now that it's a usable space, he's just shocked. He's never seen it this way ever. So to him, it's really cool to get to see just the old coal room that we used to shovel coal out with in the winter. And now it's a recording studio.
Yeah. It's painted all black. We've got sound panels up.
Yeah, some of them are falling already, but it's okay.
They were really hard to stick up there.
Yeah, I don't know how people do that, but we try to figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we are in our new space. I did document a little bit of it on our Patreon. And then if you go there, I think it's public for anyone to go and see.
Nice.
Or just for followers. You don't have to pay to subscribe or anything. But so there are before pictures on there of what it looked like before. And then I'll definitely post a video of the whole setup. Because right now the camera is only showing our, behind us.
Right.
So to be able to show people, I got to clean it up a little bit first. It's looking a little rough. But we'll get there. So yeah, that's kind of like why we disappeared off from the face of the earth. I mean, I've still been on my socials and I've had a lot of people asking like, what the fuck?
Hello?
What happened? And I get it. But so I think the plan from here on out, this is a Friday the 13th episode just because it's Friday the 13th.
It's a great day to come back.
So I think from now on, though, we're planning on putting out one episode every Wednesday morning. I think is going to be the hump day. Yeah. So
excellent.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Today, though, I wanted to share, this is just going to be a short little mini episode, but I wanted to share some listener tales brought from our listeners. From you, for you.
All about you.
All about you. Yeah. I thought, what a fun way to come back. And we also just need to get caught up in general because my inbox was overflowing.
Yeah.
With how long we've been gone. Some of these are from like January.
Sorry, y'all.
So, because we are coming back and just a little something for everyone. We partnered with Destination Unknown to host a giveaway. That's going to be posted on my Instagram, which I'll have linked in the description so that you can go there, figure out how to enter. They are doing one game specifically for our patrons just to make sure they have a good chance of winning.
Yeah.
And then they were super generous and they are giving us 4 additional games to give away to 4 different winners on Instagram. So definitely make sure to go check that out. I did a little description of the game and everything before this episode aired. So that is what the giveaway is for. So go check that out. Go enter. And a huge thank you to Destination Unknown for sponsoring our show.
When Bob and I were talking about it yesterday, it reminded me of like the quarter game. If you're old enough to know about that.
Yeah.
You are in a car and you flip a quarter and it's like heads is right and tails is left. It's like that, but
yeah.
Much cooler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's like getting lost on purpose.
Yeah.
Which I love because I told you, like, that's, like, if Miller and I have nothing to do, that's literally what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just drive around and, we just say, like, oh, let's take a right here and see where it leads us. And so the game is great in the sense that it kind of, I don't know, it kind of structures it for you so that you actually have rules and things.
Yeah, it's cool. It comes with like a little like timer.
Yeah, what is it? Like an hourglass?
Yeah.
Thingy?
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really fun. So go check it out. Go enter, and best of luck. I don't know when we'll do the drawing yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of open-ended right now.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be posted on
the
day
Instagram.
That this airs. So
excellent.
Okay, so for our listener tales, I have 3, but they're decent size, so we'll jump right in.
Give them to me.
This one says, "Hi, my name is Andy.
Hi,
and
Andy.
First off, let me preface this by saying I love your podcast. I found it on Spotify a couple weeks ago, and I'm just about caught up with all of the episodes." That's so sweet.
Yay!
I heard about the listener tales and I just had to send in a story of my own about a scary experience that I had as a little girl in my childhood home. Growing up in the house, I always felt there was something there. I would see things from the corner of my eye and get chills, feeling like I was being watched. It was an older looking house that was built in the 1940s, and attached to the house on the side was a carport and an extra room, but up until I was about 10, that room had been locked up and the window was painted over. Hate that.
What?
I'll get to the story about that room in a second. Thinking about all the creepy memories I've had in that house kind of gives me chills already, so I think I'll tell you about the most traumatic memory I had there. So when I was about 6 years old, it was in the middle of the night and I heard a noise that woke me up. I was a light sleeper as a child, so literally anything would wake me up. I sat in bed and opened my eyes and I didn't see anything. It was dark, but I felt like something was watching me. So I closed my eyes and I threw the blanket over my head, thinking it'll make it disappear. That's exactly what I would do in that scenario too. I'm pretty sure I have done that multiple times.
I feel like
When I checked to see if anything was there and my eyes started to adjust to the dark, in the corner of my room was a darker figure just kind of swaying there.
swaying.
To this day, I have no idea why I took a peek. I couldn't make out what it looked like, but I was so scared no words came out of my mouth, but yet I got up and ran out of my room. You would think I would have run to my mom's room, but instead I ran through the house and it chased after me. How my running down the hall didn't wake my mom up, I will never know. My room was at the end of the hall and hers was at the beginning of it. I told her about this happening when I got older and she said I must have been dreaming. But I knew it was real and I was fully aware. This thing chased me through the house and I remember hiding under the dining room table, behind a couch, and even in these big wooden cabinets we used to store blankets in. But regardless, it found me everywhere I went.
Oh my God.
While hiding in the cabinet, it didn't even open the door. It literally went through it. At this point, it got close enough that I can now see a face in this black mass. Now, at 28 years old, I can still describe to you the details of the face. It had white, pasty skin, dark, sunken-in eyes, a long nose, and long, stringy white hair with a scar running down its face and its mouth open in a silent yell. That's like some horror movie shit.
Did she say where she lives?
No.
Okay.
No, she didn't, but I'd be interested to know the history behind that.
Yeah.
I remember running back to my room, shutting the door, and once again pulling the blanket over me, but this time nothing followed me back there. I never saw the thing again, but I know it was real, and ever since then, while I was in that house, I always felt watched until we moved out when I was 13. And then they included another story, and this one is really spooky.
That one was really spooky.
I know, but this one just like, I think because I relate to it personally. Okay, so the second story. Another instance actually involves that extra room attached to the house that I mentioned earlier. So when I was 8, my mom met my stepdad, and then I gained 2 brothers, 9 and 10 years old, and an older sister, 13. Since my parents' room and my room were the only bedrooms, they contacted my family member that my mom was renting the house from about the extra room outside to see if they could convert it into an extra bedroom for my brothers to have their own space when they stayed the night, and my sister would just bunk with me. So they ended up opening the room, and inside were random boxes, old newspapers, trash, old bottles, and tons of spiders. Yeah. I had no idea why they had it closed off. It kind of gave me the creeps just thinking about it. They fully remodeled that room for my brothers and added some new carpet, some futons, and a TV so they would be more comfortable in a space of their own. The following story happened to one of my brothers. He said that one night he was lying in bed on his phone and it needed to be charged. So before he went to bed, he plugged in the cable and heard the phone make the sound that it makes when you plug it into the charger. Then he turns over to go to sleep. A few seconds later, he hears his phone make a sound as if it was being unplugged from the charger. So he turns back over and grabs his phone and realizes that it's not charging, but yet it's plugged into the bottom of his phone. So he uses his light to see what's going on and notices that the charger head is lying on the floor at least a few feet away from the wall plug. So he gets up and plugs it back in, and a few seconds later, it happens again. So he switched over to a different plug in the wall, and it didn't happen anymore. I just thought that was creepy. He would also tell me that he would hear and see things in the house too, and sometimes at night, when he would go into the kitchen to grab something to snack on, he could feel something in the kitchen with him. So, being the weirdo that he is, and to not feel so afraid, he would talk out loud to it until he finished fixing up whatever he was going to eat, and then he'd book it back to his room. Honestly, like...
That sounds like something I would do.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey!
So, here we are again.
Making a PB&J, don't mind me.
Sorry for intruding. Strangely, last year, I had a really vivid dream about this house and how I walked inside and it had no furniture. I walked through the whole house, just taking in the differences from when I lived there to now, and then walking back out and waking up. I had this dream in August, and I remember because it was the day before I started work. I work for a school, and we were on summer break. And I was telling my husband about it. Come to find out, when I was typing my story out to email you guys, I looked up my old house on Zillow, and it was up for rent in August of last year, the same month I had that dream. How freaky is that? Also, if you guys are interested in more stories, I have some about my mom and her own experiences in the house that she lived in before this one, and how it was definitely haunted, and how she felt like whatever was there had followed her to the house that I grew up in.
Yes, please. Also, where? I'd love to know more stories and like the city or general area.
General location. Yeah,
that's spooky.
The plug story though reminded me of that story I was telling you yesterday. Yes, and I realized I've never told that on the pod.
Tell it.
So this was back when my husband and I were like still dating, and we were sleeping in our bed one night, and he was charging his phone on the dresser next to our bed. And I woke up to that tapping sound, like, you know, when you're texting and you have the ringer on. I woke up to that sound, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? Is this dude texting while I'm sleeping right next to him? I wake up and I look over. He's dead asleep. I like lean over him to see what the fuck is going on. And the phone is texting by itself, just full on. And it was all just
gibberish.
Yeah, like none of it was actual words.
But it was just.
But the keyboard was tight, and you could see it's like
when the little bubble it expands.
Yeah, like when you're like pressing the letters on the keyboard and they like pop up because of the heat in your fingers or something. Whatever I don't know how it works, but yes, it was doing that, and I woke him up. I was so freaked out, and I was like, "What is going on?" And he saw it too, and he's like, "I don't know." He like shut his phone off and everything. It was so freaky. It was so freaky, and I completely forgot about that story until just recently. We had something spooky in the house happened, and it just came to me, and then I couldn't sleep after that. I was like, "Oh my God, it was so scary," and we just kind of like glazed over it. Like, oh, you know, just
that's fine.
Shit happens.
Welcome to my home.
Right. I know. And then he texted me because I had texted him about that the other night when I thought about it. I was like, do you remember when that happened? And he was like, yeah, didn't you have something like that happen to your phone, with your phone too? And, oh no, you know what it was? My phone. So he thought that the same thing had happened to me, but what it was I was texting him while he was still awake, but I was asleep. Like my phone was sending messages to him, but I was asleep with my phone under my pillow. And then when I responded to him and told him like, no, it was this instead, he's like, this house. I'm like, exactly. Okay, so story number 2. They say, hi, my name is Mo, and I've been a follower of Bobby's TikTok for a while now. When I found out you had a podcast, I just had to follow you on there as well. You and Lexi have become part of my daily routine, and I listen to you both pretty much every day. It's so nice.
Mi corazón.
I really enjoy both of y'all. You make me laugh so much, and I have a couple creepy things that have happened to me in my 26 years of life, so I figured y'all will love to hear them.
Heck yeah.
So I'm originally from Connecticut, born and raised there in a small town on the coast. My parents got divorced when I was around 6. My dad moved in with his parents and later remarried my now stepmom when I turned 11, and they bought a house in the same town as my mom. My mother moved into my grandparents' house right after they split. From the time I was 6 to high school, I grew up in my mom's house, and from 11 years old to high school, I lived with my dad and stepmom in their house along with my 2 younger brothers, and we would go back and forth between them. I, however, have had creepy things happen to me at both of their houses. So let me start with my mom's house. The house is a small cottage on a small winding road surrounded by woods. I love that. Mm-hmm. But they say, creepy, I know.
Yeah, it's part of the appeal.
Yeah, exactly. It had a long driveway set far back from the road and a large pond in the back of the house. To add to the creepiness, the house was built in the 1940s, had the original hardwood floors that creaked with every movement, and my grandmother hated curtains on the windows. She loved natural light.
Oh,
Sounds like my
same
dad.
here.
I know, but you know what? It took us years. It took us someone trying to break into the house to get curtains on the windows. Let me just say, they were a luxury in this household. As a young girl, I always hated that she never put curtains on the windows. I used to tell my mom that it felt like people were outside staring at me and that I felt uncomfortable. I hated leaving my bedroom at night, which was hard because I was a horrible sleeper. One of the scariest things that happened in the house was one night, I would say around midnight. It was one of those times I couldn't sleep and I was hungry. So I crept out to the kitchen, trying not to wake my grandma, my brother, or my mom. After I got the food, I turned around to walk back down the hall, and as I did, I regrettably looked out the kitchen window. Oh, I hate this already. I'm gonna cry. And in the trees, I saw a large, dark figure, and I felt like it was staring at me.
It was.
Why do you have to say that? I got so scared and froze. I just remember being terrified that it was looking at me and I was staring at it. The moment felt like forever till I was able to break this trance, and I ran down the hall and jumped into bed and never talked about it again. Oh, God. I was home alone a lot growing up, and even though I liked being alone, I hated being alone in that house. I always felt like someone was watching my every move and following me around my house. Every corner, the hallway, the woods, it didn't matter. Another time in the middle of the night, and this night I was asleep. My grandfather was still working at the time when this event occurred. He always used to get up super early in the morning, put on his heavy work boots, and stomp around the house singing and humming. I always loved that about him. However, this particular night, I remember waking up. I don't know if I was lucid dreaming or what, but I remember hearing the heavy footsteps on the hardwood floor of him walking down the hallway. Then I started to hear the singing, thinking, okay, he's just going to work, so I went back to sleep. That morning, I was woken up by my mom, and when I walked out to the kitchen, there was my grandfather, standing over the stove, flipping pancakes, not wearing his work boots, and still in his pajamas. When I asked him why he isn't dressed for work, he told me he didn't need to go in that day. Now moving over to my father's house. That house was built in the 80s, so not that old. Pretty typical for the homes in the area. However, the previous owner of the house died in the house, in my brother's bedroom to be exact.
Oof.
He was an old man, from what I was told, and had a very loving family and a couple of sons. Small stuff started to happen, like things would go missing and reappear, doors would reopen after being shut closed, our appliances never worked, and my dogs would freak out and bark at everything. My parents' bedroom was on the first floor, and our rooms were on the second. My brother's bedroom, the room the guy died in, sat above my parents' bedroom. My stepmom would tell us when we would stay at our mom's house and my dad was working at night that she'd lay in bed and she could hear the closet doors opening and closing all night long in that room. No, thank you. I started to feel a presence in the home when I was alone. I felt someone standing in the hallway staring at me when I'd go downstairs. My dogs would bark uncontrollably in the hall. I would see shadow figures when I'd turn around after washing the dishes, and they would run in front of my car when pulling into the driveway. I would pull right the fuck back out. The memory that still gets me to this day is I got home from school one day. I was 14 at the time, and like any other day, I was home alone and greeted by my doggies at the door. I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table and started doing my homework. Next thing, I heard a loud bang that came from the basement. It's always the freaking basement, man. Knock on foam.
I can't.
Under the foam is cement. We're effect. So next thing, I heard a loud bang that came from the basement. That's where we had our game room, laundry, and where my family spent most of our time. Me being surprisingly brave, grabbed my phone and the largest kitchen knife I could find, thinking it was a person in my home, walked toward the basement, and I opened the door, ran down the stairs, looked around, and it was empty. When I walked around the couch, there lay on the floor a picture of my family. It flew off the wall. I picked it up and ran back up the steps. I told my dad about it later, and he just told me that the old man must have done it. Thanks, Dad.
It's like your dad.
Exactly. You're not helping. Growing up in that home, whatever or whoever's presence was still there never felt malevolent. Just a man with unfinished business and pissed that a young family with 3 rowdy kids and 2 dogs moved into his house.
Messing with his closet.
Yeah. Eventually, things died down, and then after I graduated high school, everything stopped completely. The appliances started working, things stopped going missing, and everything was normal.
Interesting.
I always loved the homes I grew up in and appreciated them greatly. Eventually, my parents sold their small cottage and relocated to Florida. It was a sad day when they sold the house because they couldn't keep it in the family. If I could, I would have bought that house in a heartbeat, even though creepy things happened to me. I am now myself living in Florida and have been here for almost 4 years, and surprise, surprise, I'm living in the oldest town in America and one of the most haunted, St. Augustine. I want to go there so bad.
Well, it's your name.
I know, that's my maiden name. Augustine. Since moving here, things have happened to me in my adult life as well. So if you'd love to hear those stories, let me know. I'd be more than happy to share them with you. Once again, I'm a big fan of y'all, and I hope you get to read this.
Thank you.
Thank you for sending in your story, Mo. It was super spooky. I was reading this last night, and as soon as she mentioned, I was sitting at the dining room table with all the lights on. And
you're like, people are looking at me.
Yeah, I'm like, they're looking at me and I can't see them. Yeah, I was
in a fishbowl.
I was spooked out by that.
The closets got me. Sometimes I'm home alone and our house is very small and we have 2 dogs. One of them, Remy, is much bigger. Mm-hmm. And when it's just myself and the dogs, sometimes he'll get up and walk and it sounds like a freaking person. And so I am like, I swear to God,
Remy, lay down right now.
I know. I stop breathing and I
try to listen.
Poke around and then I just see this big, clumsy, happy dog. Oh, hi.
Just me, mother. Sorry to startle you. Oh, God. Yeah, no, I'm not a fan. Like, when I'm home alone and have the dogs, I'm so scared the entire time. I'm like, you guys can't protect me from forces unseen. Because
they're too scared.
They bark at everything. And my one dog will not come down in the basement. If she sees you come down here, she will bark at you from the railing. She's terrified of this. We had a tornado and we had to carry this dog down the basement stairs. And she's 70 pounds.
She's a big girl.
Anyways, okay. So this is our last one, and it's a good one. It's very good.
Okay.
They say, hiya.
Hiya.
I have so many spooky experiences I can share with you, but I'll pace myself so I don't overwhelm your inbox. Let's start with a house my husband and I rented for a year before we bought our home. It was a pretty cool house, spacious and out of the way from traffic in a very quiet neighborhood, so it was an easy yes from us when it was offered by a friend of mine. She was moving her family out of state and wasn't ready to sell the house, so she asked if we could stay there for a while as we were outgrowing the rental we had been in previously. We moved in on a very hot July Saturday. Our first night in the house was uncomfortable. The house felt hollow and stuffy at the same time. I assumed it was because some of our furniture wasn't in place yet, and it was just so humid outside. Our kids were really little. One had just recently turned 2, and the baby was about to turn 1. So we decided to sleep in their room until we got settled. My eldest kiddo was staying with my parents for the weekend while we got the house situated. Sorry. Mm-hmm. The kids got to sleep easily, but I just couldn't, and my husband, who can sleep anywhere at any time, was also restless. We whispered to each other as we tried to get comfy on the floor of our kids' room and talked about how nice it was to have so much open space. At one point, he looked at his phone and it was almost 3. We should try to get some sleep. And no sooner had we closed our eyes, the fucking smoke alarm started going off. At exactly 3 a.m. on the dot. We know all about that. He and I raced around upstairs, downstairs, the basement, checking for fires and smoke and trying to press all of the reset buttons on the detectors, and they kept blasting for 5 solid minutes until they stopped. Our kids woke up terrified.
I'm sure.
Understandably so. The next morning, the sun was bright, the windows were open, and we were able to move things into place to feel more at home. And I cooked our first real dinner in the house and made muffins. We didn't put any further thought into the smoke detectors at all, thinking it must have been triggered by us moving shit around, stirring up dust, or something. But even with our familiar furniture and items, the house still felt like an echoey shell. There was no homey feeling to it. If it could express emotions, I swear that house would say it's unhappy. The second night, we went about our usual bedtime business, and again, the kiddos went to bed without any hiccups in routine. My husband and I tried to settle in on the floor of their room, but both of us were uneasy again. We didn't have any chit-chat that night, just doom-scrolled Facebook, as one does with insomnia. Eventually, we dozed off, and wouldn't you know, those fucking smoke detectors sounded at exactly 3 a.m., scaring us and our kids until it stopped at 3:05 again.
No.
I'll just shorten this a smidge by saying that this happened on the third night, too.
Oh my
God. So
God.
on Tuesday morning, I called the local fire department to ask if anyone could come check over the house for leaks or for any other reason that the smoke detectors would be set off.
Yeah.
A couple of guys came out and checked every level of the house and around the perimeter. One of them left without saying anything to me at all. He just walked out and sat in the truck. The other guy, while we were down in the basement, looked at me and shook his head, saying, "I don't like this house." And he went on to say that the smoke detectors, 6 in all, were hardwired into the power, which is why one sets off all of them, but not a single one was active. I have chills right now.
Wait.
None of them were connected because of the internal wires. They had been cut. He went out to the truck and brought in 3 battery-operated smoke and carbon monoxide detectors so we could have one on each level in case of an actual emergency. Neither of the firefighters could find any cause for the detectors to alert. After that, the smoke detectors stayed silent, all of them, but that was just the start of the horrors in that awful house. They weren't even connected, dude. They weren't connected.
They had no power.
They had no power to them, and these fucking smoke detectors are going off at 3 o'clock every single morning.
All of them.
All 6 of them.
And the one firefighter was just like, I'm out.
Wash my hands
Larry,
of
it's
this
your
shit.
turn. Oh my God.
God.
That is horrifying.
My husband and I started sleeping in our own room on the 4th night, and our youngest woke up around 2 a.m. So I went in to get him and brought him into our room. My husband went in with our toddler because we had this thing about them being alone in their bedroom, so we each had a kiddo with us. I went back to sleep beside the baby in our room, but was startled awake by a shout, and my husband's silhouette in the doorway of our bedroom, just standing there staring at me. I sat up, still gathering my bearings from sleep, and asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" He just turned and walked down the hallway. I jumped off the bed to follow him, but found that he had been sound asleep, snoring on the floor beside our toddler's bed that hadn't been my husband in the doorway. That figure appeared to all of us several times in the year we lived there. He most frequently stood in the corner of my oldest kid's bedroom, frightening him most nights. Poor kid.
Oh my gosh.
And we all avoided the dining room because it was the darkest in the house. It seemed to be where the shadow figure would enter and leave through an old hutch in the corner. I think this figure was responsible for a lot of activity in that house. A couple of weeks into our stay there, another weekend that my big kid had a sleepover with my parents, my husband and I were in the kitchen after the littles went to bed. We were getting ready to watch a movie together and scoop some ice cream in the kitchen. We stopped when we heard I hate this. We stopped when we heard someone running through the hallway upstairs. Too heavy to have been either of our small kids. So we waited and listened at the bottom of the stairs and heard whispering and giggling. And we rushed up the stairs to their room. We looked in at the babies, both sleeping soundly. The safety gate was across the bottom half of the doorway, so we knew they hadn't been in the hall. And then suddenly, we both distinctly hear a quiet, low, shut the door. And those same footsteps were heard rushing across the kids' bedroom, and the door slammed in our faces. We brought both kids into our room for the rest of the night and forgot about our movie and ice cream from that point on until we moved into our new home. We never let the little ones sleep alone in any rooms, and my big kid's door and our bedroom door stayed open at all times. There was so many other spooky things that happened in that house, but I think this is enough to share in one email. And in case you're wondering, when we bought our own home, the shadow figure showed up one night during our first week in the house. He stood in the doorway of our kids' room. I told him he wasn't welcome. More specifically, I told him to fuck off.
Excellent.
And we've never seen him since. Our home is haunted, but not in a scary way. We've befriended the entities here, and I think they're the ones keeping the bad energy out, protecting us from feeling afraid.
That's nice.
So yeah, that is my very long story for now. I'll send another soon. If you do read this on the pod, thank you for taking the time to check it out. H. Jesus Christ.
Holy hell.
I think I need to go to church. Oh my God.
That is so
freaky.
Spooky. That would be the longest year of my life.
Especially when you have kids too, because I swear to God,
but
kids can like see shit that we can't. And to know that like, okay, if I'm seeing this, what are they experiencing right now? Oh my God. It's so crazy.
I feel bad for the older kiddo too that was like all alone and in their room.
Freaking thing just standing in the corner of the room. Like, oh my God. Terrifying. That was such a good read though. Thank you.
Stressed.
Thank you to everyone who sent their stories in. Those were so amazing. Like I said, I was reading these last night. It was like midnight. I should have just went my ass to bed because good Lord. I was struggling and I'll just say.
Well, you did it.
I done did it. And here we are doing it again. So thank you so much to everyone who sent stories in. And if you think you have a story that we would like to hear, please feel free to send it in to listenertales@gmail.com. And we'd love to read it on the pod one day.
Please. And more stories if you, again.
Yeah,
if you have the thing that's like, I have more stories if you'd like to hear.
We would.
Yes.
The answer is always yes.
Send
them in, please. And we will continue with our listener tales in next week's episode. Technically not next week. It's only like 5 days.
Well.
Wednesday's episode. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for listening. We hope you have a lovely Friday the 13th. Ooh. And remember to always keep it spooky.